Hi everybody, my name is Richard.
Hi everybody, my name is Richard.
And I've owned this Porsche for 51 years. This is a 1973 .5 911T Targa.
0.5. Why is it a 0.5?
Well, in '73, the United States Department of Transportation and the EPA required Porsche to make some changes to their induction system because of the new fuel standards for '73. Porsche, the early production models, didn't quite meet the new standards. So the early production models for '73 were actually an MFI, a mechanically fuel-injected motor. But in January 1 of 1973, Porsche was required to make those changes for the U.S. market. So what they basically did is started with a new induction system, which was a Bosch Jetronic CIS injection system. The CIS stands for Constant Injection System. So mid-year, Porsche had to produce a different induction system in order to meet the US market. And this model actually here for the US market for the '73 911Ts, there were, if my numbers are correct and my research is correct, there were 1,944 911Ts, whether it be Targa or coupes, that came to the US market. And this is production number 1,160, and production was February of 1973.
So yeah, you told me about the 0.5, which I think is really interesting. Did not know that. But why did you even want a Porsche to begin with? There's so many cool cars from the 80s back then. Why did you specifically want this type of car?
Well, living in Los Angeles and just driving around the streets and seeing some of the earlier Porsches, it really kind of fired up my passion for Porsche. So went back and read some articles, did some studies about Porsche, read a lot of things that really struck my curiosity. So it was at that point I had been working in the film industry for a number of years and made some fairly good money back then. Didn't quite have enough of the money in order to make the purchase, so actually I went to my mom and asked if she would be willing to help and cover some of the costs to make the initial purchase of the car. And she had stated to me that, well, first and foremost, my parents had separated a couple years prior to that. So my mom had stated to me that if you want to purchase this car, you need to go talk with your grandfather about making that purchase.
And I was talking to dad at that point, right?
Yeah, there was no dad, so I don't know if it was a man thing or something, but she wanted me to go to my grandfather in order to get his approval in order to make the purchase. And my grandfather was a very fiscally conservative person. He was a CEO and a chairman of the board of a corporation in the United States for a long time. And I would have to say I was probably pretty intimidated about going and talking with him about it. But as it turned out, I sat down and told him about my passion. But as it turned out, he says, "No, Richard, you're too young. I don't want you purchasing that car." And I got pretty dejected with that, went back to my mom and told my mom what happened. And she kind of patted me on the back and says, "Richard, that's okay. I'll go ahead and cover the additional cost in order for you to make the purchase."
Nice.
And with that, we made the purchase in in April of 1973 at Bob Smith Porsche Audi in Hollywood, California. And the sticker price actually back then, window sticker was approximately $8,000 with a couple of options back then. S option, she went to about $10,000. So certainly that was quite a bit of money back then. But with the help of my mom, I was able to move forward and make the purchase. And I have owned her ever since for 51 years. And I can only think that my grandfather and my mother would be proud of me that I kept the car for as long as I did. And I just didn't trash it or sell it or do something else.
See that, Grandpa? He kept it.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
So, wait, we're in April. Didn't we just hit an anniversary or another year?
Oh, actually, that's a really good point. Actually, we are. We're 51 years. It would be this April.
Yeah.
So
April.
we're April of 1973.
And your birthday's in April?
My birthday's in April.
My birthday's in April.
There you go.
It just goes. It just works. You've had this now 51 years, which is crazy long.
Yep.
But any crazy stories of when you've owned it through, that's a long time. Something must have happened.
You mean like hitting a deer one early morning? We were doing an early morning drive with my girlfriend, Mara.
So I'm trying to imagine, right? I'm gonna be Mara for a couple seconds here. Driving along, we're on a date, and you cream a deer.
Yeah.
In this.
Yes. 1974, I think it was. In LA, we were doing an early morning drive on Mulholland Drive, a famous road in the Hollywood Hills.
And it was an early morning ride. We were coming around a slow corner, and there was a deer. The deer was just sitting in the middle of the road, and I couldn't stop fast enough. And so we slightly hit the deer. She fell on the front hood, but she did get up. I mean, it was such a slow corner. She got up, she jolted away, but certainly, you know, we were left with a dent in the front hood. We still finished the ride.
Right.
We still enjoyed the ride, but it was a little disappointing. You know, certainly didn't want to hurt the deer, and let alone hurt my car. So
Man, that must have been something.
it was one of my first, you know, unfortunate experiences with the car. There are a couple others.
So yeah, you went through quite a bit with the car, but as we know from the intro, this car is not stock. So break down the changes, or at what point the changes began happening with this car.
In 1986, I moved down to San Diego. And the car went into storage for about 5 years, and then decided that it was time to bring it back out and go enjoy the ride. So with the help of Alan Johnson Racing in San Diego in 1991, we came in and we did some modifications to the car, which gave me the ability to go do some autocross and some time trials, which I was kind of anxious to do with the local PCA club in San Diego. So some of the modifications that we made back in 1991 is we went with a 1973 steel OEM RS Flare. And so with the help of John Kohler as a welder, we came and cut and welded in the 73 RS Flare. And in order to meet the 73 RS Flare, we had to kick out the rear bumperette. As you can see here, the little bit of flare. And the rear bumperette actually would be like the Touring, so this rubber in this chrome package was from the 1973 Carrera RS, and the 1973 Carrera RS had two different versions. They had a lightweight and they had a touring version. What you're looking at here is a 1973 Carrera RS, and this is the touring package. Remember, there were two different packages. This is the touring model, which has the chrome and the rubber insert piece, and along with, as you can see, the chrome bumper with a rubber insert. This again is the 1973 Carrera RS, but this is the lightweight version. And as you can see the difference for the lightweight, you just have a piece of tape running along here. No chrome, no rubber insert, and then the bumper itself was molded in to the rear bumper itself. So one-piece system, more lightweight, but yet these cars, you know, today's market, we'll find them anywhere from $500,000 to potentially $1 million to 1.5, depending if it's matching numbers and originality. With the Flare, we also had to kick out the rocker panel, so in order to meet the Flare. Wheel and tire package, what we're looking at, because we did the little wheel wider package in the rear, we were able to go with a little wider rear wheel and tire package. And this is from a 1986 930 Turbo and with recessed lug nuts. So something very unique for that model year. And on the front, we have from a 1986 944 Turbo rear wheel set. Same thing, 16-inch. These are both 16-inch wheels, and once again, recessed lug nuts. And we're actually using Hoosier R8 tires, 225, 50, 16 on the front, and a 245, 45, 16 in the rear. Pretty unique wheels. You don't see them too often, especially on an early 1973 model like this. Coming to the back of the car, actually just a little quick point here, which is rather kind of unique back in 1973. If you look at the rear tail lens, you can see a yellow reverse light. And actually in Europe, a lot of the early model Porsches were using an amber reverse light. So I just went and took some acrylic paint and yellow, and I colored these in back in, I think it's 1974 or so. So I've actually had this yellow reverse light for probably 50 plus some odd years. It's kind of unique, something you don't see that often. Aluminum rear deck lid. And then also, if you look at the license plate, this is the original license plate back in 1973 in California.
It's my favorite part of your car right here is the stack of California tags. That's
51 years of registration tags on the car. car. I just kept piling them up and piling them up and piling them up. So 51 years of registration
Proof
tax.
right there. If anyone questions how long you've had it, just show them that, and they're like, all right, I can't argue with it.
Exactly. And then these are the original bumperettes in '73 that came with the car. So we have the same thing in the front, but the cosmetic look of the car. A lot of the early 911 owners pulled those front bumpers off in order to give a little cleaner look to the front of the car. So once again, in 1973, this was a standout year alone. So these were the bumpers that were used only in '73. '72 was a chrome bumper with a rubber insert. And in '74, when the EPA and the DOT made their changes to the emission standards, they also did some collision changes that need to be made. So in 1974, the new G Series Porsche had a completely different front and rear bumper system, which makes the '73 really kind of a very unique and standout year for me and in production.
You guys taking notes, because we're learning a lot today. Isn't the front bumper was changed too, right?
Yeah, the front bumper is from a 911S. So the original bumper was a steel bumper. It was kind of funky. It was different, had some fog light cutouts for it that were covered up with some metal. But this is a 1973 S front bumper. So a little bit different. Horn grills in prior to 1973, the horn grills were chrome. But in 1973, they changed them to black. The turn signal lenses, prior to '73, the trim around the lens was actually a silver or a chrome coloration. But in '73, they changed it to black. This is a Bosch H1 headlight. One of the original headlights that were used a long time ago with Porsche. The original headlights were different. They had a much larger chrome piece. So this is an aftermarket headlight, but a very unique headlight that you don't see many of these anymore. This H1 headlight is a two-bulb system with a little different kind of a reflective piece on the glass itself. The new style is the H4, which actually uses a single bulb system. And this is the Bosch H4 headlight, like we were just talking about. So it actually is a single bulb, but you do have a little bit of difference in the glass. You can see up top, we've got a little more of a bubble effect. And then down below, you've got a little bit different pattern on your reflective part of the lens itself.
Impressive. You have so many little touches on this car that makes it so unique.
Yeah, it's very unique, very different. And actually, the chrome, just to let you know, everything from the door handle up, being the original owner, what you're looking at is a door handle in all chrome and rubber. From the door handle up is original chrome and rubber. Certainly below is the RS rocker, so that is a later model version.
You get a pass on that one.
I get that. Thank you. Appreciate that. And then unique style too to the '73, especially for the Targas, the early models too, had a wind wing. So for a little extra ventilation, you can open up your wind wing and get a little better airflow into the car.
Oh, that's right. They don't. Yeah. I thought they all had that.
No, just the Targas. The coupes do not have that.
Yeah, you're right. They don't.
The coupes are solid windows, right?
See? More notes. Yeah. Okay, so
yes,
I'm pretty sure everyone wants to see the engine interior.
You want to open it up for you?
Yeah, let's open it up.
Okay.
Let's,
you got it. Okay, give me a second here.
Trying to find dirt. I'm trying to see if there's.
No, yeah, well, hopefully not. And if you do, don't show anybody, but there shouldn't be. Well, we done a lot of concourse with the car, a lot of local car shows. We were actually in 2023, last year, at the Porsche Parade in Palm Springs, California. She placed first in her class. Then we were at Amelia earlier this year in March for the Works reunion, and she actually won her class there also. So she's got lots of kind of little trophies and awards to her as part of her history. But what you're looking at here in the front hood compartment, this is original carpet. 1973, so 51-year-old carpet. And what you're looking at here on the front is the original toolkit that came with the car, the original jack that came with the car. It's a little different style. Original owner's manual. This is what Porsche does, is a certificate of authenticity. So they actually will send you a letter documenting your car with your VIN number and the fact that this is a certified vehicle and an original vehicle with the original VIN number. And you can see there the production year, VIN number, and other pertinent information about the car.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Kind of curious to see how nice your toolkit. You know, you have this wrapped up.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got going on in here because I've shot quite a few of these and almost. Oh man.
There
You have the original timing belt still. Is this the timing belt?
That's the timing belt.
With Porsche written on it.
Yeah. And there are a couple of things that are still missing. There are a couple of wrenches in there that are missing, but they got kind of
that the
got
leather is
lost
still-
at one point after 51 years.
These are normally rusted apart. This is torn apart. I mean,
Well, I try and keep everything in air
fact that you
condition.
kept
Yeah,
all of
they
this.
don't sit outside.
and then an
so
encyclopedia of records.
that
My gosh.
that's 51 years of service records, Richard. So I have kept all the service records. The pages are double-sided.
A book.
It's a book. So the 51 years of service records. And then this actually is the original Cardex that came with. So this would be the typical window sticker back in 1973. And you can see the price there at $10,000. Yeah. And the original price, well, the initial price was $8,000, approximately $8,000. And
They're
then
bragging
with
about
tax-
3-speed windshield wipers. Oh, big options there, man. Look
And
at
Bob,
that.
Bob Smith, well, that's Porsche Audi, yep. And then the final sticker price was just over $10,000.
Now, is that dealership still there to this day?
Bob Smith Porsche Audi, I believe, is not there any longer. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check on
That'd
that,
be
but
cool
I
to
don't
make a
think they
trip
are.
and take the car there. All right.
So that's
interior.
And then also just real quick, being that the original owner, and I showed you the license plate with the 51 years of registration tags, this is all my registration, not tags, but tickets, the tickets, something like that,
Paperwork.
Yeah.
paperwork.
That's-
So that's 51 years of everything.
Jeez.
So,
That's great. The fact that you kept all of this.
so that's a little bit of the front a hood compartment, and I think what we'll do is let's move back to the engine, and then we'll come back to the interior and show you a few things on the interior.
The engine, the power plant.
Yep.
Break it down.
1986, 3.2 liter. And actually, this came out of a salvaged 911 back in 91. She was a low mileage motor. She had about 20 to 25,000 miles on her before we put her in the car. And since the modifications back in 91, bringing you up to date in 2024, basically she's only had about 15,000 original miles on the car. The car does have 130,000 miles on it. So initially, when I was in Los Angeles as a daily driver and working, I put about 115,000 miles on her. Then in storage in 86, then we brought her out. So this motor has an additional 15,000 miles on it. So she's probably got about 35,000 thereabouts original mileage on the motor. A couple things to point out on the motor. We are running a different air induction system. This motor had a larger air box that was placed. You can see the mounting point here. There was a much larger air box here, but we took that off to give a little bit better performance, and we just went with the straight can-in air filter, so we're delivering a little bit quicker airflow into the motor. Pretty much a stock motor. We didn't do any internal changes to it. One change we did make is the spark plug wires. These spark plug wires are actually from Hotwire, which is a manufacturer in California. So technically, it's going to offer a little hotter spark, and you need to put in a little hotter spark plug in order to meet that hotter spark. So you can see here where the built-in capacitor is. So kind of unique, but Hotwire does that with a lot of different vehicles. So, but we wanted to add a little additional something to it. So she is running 1 5/8 inch Bosch headers with a Bosch Sport muffler. And other than that, you can see a lot of the zinc plating, the CAD plating, and this was all done by 9 Automotion here in Riviera Beach. So before we went to the Boca Raton Porsche Parade in 2019, Gordon and Kate at 9 Automotion, we dropped the motor and we came in and dressed it up and did the CAD plating, the zinc plating and stuff. So adds a little bit unique nature to the motor. In here too. All the everything here. And she's producing, I believe, she has a chip upgrade with the air modifications and with the Hotwire. She's probably running about 260 horsepower. I can't quite remember what the OEM horsepower was for 86. I think it was around 240 or there, but I may be incorrect. But I do believe she's producing probably about 260 to 265 horsepower right now.
Okay, so The interior, but before
Yeah.
we go on that, maybe we should show everyone
Oh, pull the Targa
taking
top
the Targa off.
See how
the
that
whole,
works?
Yeah.
We got just the 2 latches here, sun visors down. We got the 2 release latches here. And technically, which I have done for 51 years, is make sure the latches are open a little bit and then lift. And so I've done this for 51 years. So I've learned how to do it a few times. So interior, being the original owner 51 years, what you're looking at, except for the seats, steering wheel, sun visors, and certainly the cocoa mats, original carpet, original panel. So technically the inside of the car is all original. Dashboard is original. And in 1973 and earlier, the dashboards, if they were left out in the sun, you would always see some cracking going on. But being that this has been kind of a garage queen for a long time, this is the original dashboard without any cracks at all. The seats are 1973 Recaro LS seats, LSIS. It is error correct. They are 1973 seats, but they're not the original seats that came with the car. Unfortunately, the original seats, back when I did the modifications back in 91, I wasn't really thinking about keeping the seats, so I sold the seats to get a little money to do some of the interior stuff. So unfortunately, I don't have the original seats any longer, but certainly the car's modified so it wouldn't really meet what the standard, original seats would look like.
These fit. I mean, they look like they came with the car.
Yeah, they're 51. They're error correct in 51 years.
Plastic pumps for adjustments.
Yes, and so what you're looking at there is an old style lumbar support. So technically, there is a bladder that's in the backrest, the lower backrest of the seat. And kids, for all you people who are not as old as I am, these are hand pumps. So in order to pump up the lumbar support, you would pump here, you'd start pumping up. You can almost see it move just a little bit. And then to release, you push this button and just push back, and then it'll release the air in the bladder. And these actually are the original 1973 rubber, and you can see certainly the cracking and the stuff over those years. Unfortunately, for some reason, that one seems pretty clean though, but this one's certainly showing a little bit of 51 years of wear. So once again, Recaro LSIS seats. Steering wheel is a Emerson Fittipaldi steering wheel, so certainly not the stock wheel. What you're looking at here is the original 1973 steering wheel that came with all of the 73 models. So whether you were a coupe, a Targa, a 911T, E, or S, this would be the steering wheel. I did have to replace the sun visors because after 51 years, the cardboard inside of the sun visors just deteriorated. What you'll see on a lot of the earlier Porsches, they just kind of puff out as the cardboard starts to deteriorating. And being that we were showing the car and doing Concours stuff with the car, we certainly couldn't have that, and being certainly modified. If it were in the original condition, I would have left the sun visors as they are, but with the modifications and showing, we went in with some new sun visors. Cocoa mats were the era in 73. I love cocoa mats, kind of helps to save the original carpet, which I still have outside the car. They're in the storage unit. But I've always just loved the cocoa mats, and I think the color theme kind of goes nicely with that. Back seats, also with the early 1973s. On the back seats, a lot of people would lift the seat, and this strap here with the button, there's another button back here, so basically you pull that up, and then the strap will button down, and it will hold the seat just in that nature. I have opted to not leave the seats up because what will happen again, such as the Targa top, as you can see here, the little bit of bubbling, you will get a nice crease in the carpet and it doesn't look very nice. So I've always been of the mind to leave them down as opposed to up, so it will not create that kind of uncomfortable look that's on the carpet.
Speaking of passengers, there's a little someone I see down here. That's been hanging out.
Yeah, there's a good story on that one. So she is my little Dutch girl. And back in 1973, the girl that I was dating after I purchased the car, she says, Richard, why don't we go ahead and put this in the car? She can be your mascot when I'm not in the car.
No.
So actually, she has been in the car for 51 years and hasn't been touched. She sat in that same position. And in all actuality, she had a brain. She probably would have some good stories about what went on inside this car for 51 years. But fortunately, she's...
I mean, there's a reason why she's looking away. She didn't try to see nothing anymore.
Well, there's not much more to see in the late days. Maybe the early days, there'll be something to talk about. So we had an oil embargo. A lot of you young folks probably don't remember, obviously. But in 1973, we had an oil embargo and some rationing of fuel. So actually, the speed limit, the highway speed limit, back in 1973 was 55 miles an hour. Can you imagine in today's world doing 55 miles an hour? So technically what I had to do with the original steering wheel is I had to turn the miles per hour gauge, tilt it a little bit to the side because the 55 miles an hour was right at 12 noon and the steering wheel would cover the 55 mile an hour mark. So I wasn't quite sure where I was. I knew if I was below, I was going slower. If I knew I was above, then I certainly was going faster. So what I did is I just tilted the miles per hour gauge so that I could see more clearly where the 55 mile an hour mark is. So you probably don't see too many people doing that, but that was a long time ago. So, but other than that, that's pretty much, window cranks, everything is original on the interior except for the seat, again, the seats, sun visor, and the steering wheel.
Original radio?
The radio, the original radio is error correct, but when I got the car, I didn't think much about the originality of the car. So I wanted a little better sound system. So I put in, a CD, it was a CD player or a cassette player, I think back then, probably a cassette player. So I put a cassette player in, and the original owner, I think I sold it or something happened to it. So that is an error correct radio, but not the original radio in the car. So yes, that is correct. Cool. It's not the original radio. So
pretty cool.
But other than that, that's pretty much the interior of the car.
Nice. Are we gonna drive this thing?
We can do that. Let's go for a drive.